Welcome to the Married People Podcast, where we help you make marriage real, fun, and simple. Each week, we have honest conversations about one simple thing that can make your marriage better. Because when your marriage is better, everything's better. I'm CJ, and here today, I am joined by our resident newlywed, Afton.
Hi.
And our 22-year marriage veteran.
23 now.
23-year
Congratulations.
marriage veteran.
Finally, you made it to 23, because 22 was unimpressive.
Right. And we've been saying 22 for like years now, I feel like. So it's great that we can finally update that number. Our 23-year marriage veteran, he's an author, speaker, and he's the director of marriedpeople.org, Ted Lowe.
Hello, everybody.
And today on the Married People Podcast, we are asking the question, how do I have a great vacation with my spouse?
Because having a great vacation is harder than you think.
It is. So I'm excited to jump into that here in a second. But first, friends, it's been a little while since we've sat around the round table of dim lighting here in the podcast studio.
Yep.
And so I'm glad that we're all back together. We took a little bit of a break just to kind of refresh and gear up for this next round of Married People episodes. So good to see you guys.
Yeah.
No, I was like a little kid. I was all excited. My buddies are coming back over. This is going to be good.
That's great.
So that's what a break does, like a vacation, right? It kind of refuels you.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
It gives
What
you
a
new
transition.
material to talk about.
Yes, now we get to talk about all the things that have gone wrong in our marriages
That's
over the
right.
past,
That's right.
couple weeks, couple months.
Yes.
But to get back on track, because I just totally railroaded your great transition there, Ted, right into, our podcast break. It was a little bit of a vacation, just like what we're talking about today. How do I have a great vacation with my spouse?
Yeah, I just think it's important. And Afton, you're spot on. We're going to talk about this in just a minute why, but it is a challenge to get away, just the two of you, you know, on all different levels, from work to kids to all those different things to finances. So, but it's an important deal. It does something to a couple. I think that couples need. I know this is, we're kind of laughing going, this is the most first world podcast we've ever had, probably.
Right.
Because, we need to get away, just the two of us, we're stressed. But at the same time, it is the reality in which we live, and we're going, okay, these are really, really good. I know they've been for us. What about you guys? Have vacations been good for you?
Maybe.
But
I don't
let's do it
know.
this way. Is it good for you, Afton, and is it good for your marriage? Maybe those are two different
Good for our
things.
marriage. I think the first vacation we took was a little bit disappointing, because we do the thing where,
Which was what?
For every anniversary we go on a trip. So our first anniversary we went to California, and we drove the coast, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be so relaxing, and the air. And then I spent like the entire trip, anytime we were in the car, just like 100% freaked out about Hudson's driving, because you're like on a cliff.
Sure.
There's no like, I gotta check a text. You're dead if you check a text message. You're dead.
Totally.
There's no barrier. It's just rocks to a rocky death. And so I felt like I was like on edge every time we got in the car. I'm like, the views are so beautiful, but I'm so nervous. And then I'm like, it was just this whole thing where you're like kind of bickering the whole time. And you're like, this was not supposed to be the way the vacation was supposed to go.
It's rocks to a rocky death.
Right,
I like
right.
it. So have you guys had one since then that was better, that you kind of redeemed it, or no?
I feel like the best vacations are the ones where we just like go to my parents, because they live like sort of close to a beach. So we just go to my parents and we have no plans, and we're just like there, you know? But then even the last trip we went on for our second anniversary, we went to New York, and I was so excited because I've never been there before. It was my first time. I was singing Taylor Swift every day when I woke up. And
For real?
yeah,
because of the
Welcome
New
to
York
New York
album?
Welcome to New York. And then to get around, you take the subway, and I'm like, this is so cool. It's like we're in the movies. And then we got on like 7 wrong subways the first day, and then I was over it. And I'm like, Hudson, why can you not read the subway app correctly? Why are we keep ending up where we're not supposed to be? And every time we had to go anywhere, it was a nightmare.
It's because the MARTA train system here in the Atlanta area, it's like one direction or the other
you just
direction.
get on and you get to your destination.
North, south.
North or south? Which way do you want to go?
Yes. And then we got in a lot of fights about the subway.
Were you a pod host before you took your trip?
we were still doing we were doing the podcast when I took it.
You should have been better at this.
I know, I should have.
You
Well,
didn't
actually,
apply
when
your
it was
skills.
happening, Hudson's like, "Don't talk about this on the podcast." And I'm like, no, I'm definitely talking about this on the podcast."
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's a great point, though. Sometimes vacations are not all they dream. It's hilarious to watch people fight on vacation. I know that I should not be thinking that's hilarious. I just think it's ironic.
Yeah.
We've been at Disney, and you'll watch families just going nuts. You're like, you spent so much money to be here to fight. And it makes me wonder if they don't have a lot of relationship because they're moving so fast. And then when they have to spend time together, they don't have the skills to hang out and make decisions. And they both want different things. And somebody might want to stay at the park all day. And the other one's like, no, I want to be at the pool at least 5 hours of this
Right.
day.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
It's all about, your expectations walking into it. And that's kind of the way, before Terry and I ever go on a vacation, we define it as either a relaxing vacation
that's
or
good.
an adventure vacation. Because those are two very different categories. It's like, are we going somewhere to learn the history and to walk around the town? Or are we going somewhere to put our feet in the sand?
Oh, that's so good.
So we always have that. And I do have a quick story. This is just a side.
So wait, you're the adventure one. Are you the adventure one? You want to be going out and doing stuff?
It just depends on the vibe that both of us are in. Sometimes we're both on the same page. We want to go in and adventure and explore, and then sometimes we're both, let's just sit on the beach.
So
but
you
we
have to
have
make
to
sure
have,
you're on the same page.
Right, we do. Because, we ran into that a little bit as we were getting married, kind of different expectations going into a vacation. Now we've got it down like, okay, which one is this going to be?
So good.
But I have a random story. It's just, I love telling this story because I don't have very many good adventure stories, Afton. I don't know if you know this about me. I'm not a very exciting person.
No, you're so interesting, CJ.
What are you talking about? We were talking about lawns earlier.
I know, that's just true. That's true.
We're both
Off
very
air.
passionate about it, too.
Off air, we were talking about lawn care. It's great. Before you got here, Afton.
Thank goodness.
But my one cool vacation story is actually it was on our honeymoon. And so we got married in 2012 and we were vacationing in Jamaica. And so it's great. One of those nice little all-inclusives. And so we got down there, and it was in 2012 in the fall, and it was right before Hurricane Sandy was coming through. And so we actually got there, and we're there for about 48 hours before the staff came around to all the rooms and said, hey, this hurricane is coming through. And I pulled up a picture because I've got it, I know it's really great to pull up pictures for a podcast, an audio format thing, but I'll show you guys later.
Maybe we could post it in our show notes.
But of just the hurricane's path, and it's right over us in Jamaica. And so they literally brought us food for about 48 hours. And they brought boards to board up the windows of our room. And I've got a picture of that too. They boarded up our windows for 48 hours and said, we will call you, room service. You can call us if you need food. We will take down the boards.
But don't come out of your room.
Yep.
And you had to stay in your room for 48 hours?
Which on your honeymoon is not necessarily a bad thing.
And I knew you were going to make that joke, Ted, but it was worth telling the story anyway. But yeah, it was a great memory, great experience. But then they give us a voucher for a free night, sometime in the future. But they're like, sorry about the hurricane. Here's, $100 off your next trip.
I cannot believe that happened.
But yeah, because it was crazy. But
so did you guys follow the rules? This is a whole different podcast, but is one of you the rule? Because I'd been like, you're not the boss of me.
Well,
I'm
they
gonna
were
go
literally
see this hurricane come
in. We had some windows that we could look out of, but as far as stuff that was depending on which way your room was facing, you had boards or you could see some stuff. So we stayed in our room for the most part.
So did it wreck
serious.
the place?
Oh yeah. Granted, it's Jamaica, so they're used to all of that coming through. So it to an extent, but it's not like obviously when Hurricane Sandy went up the coast and hit New York, it was a whole different story because they're not prepared for a lot of that.
Right.
But yeah, it was
that's the best.
Crazy. But that's my story.
Wow.
I had a good story.
That's
Afton.
really, really fascinating, CJ.
But
what a story.
To get us back on track, Ted, a few minutes ago, you said, hey, a lot of times couples walk into these vacations and you've seen them, we've all seen them. They start fighting and bickering and they're just not on the same page when they walk into that, vacation. So what's going on there? And is this really worth it if that's the way things end up?
Yeah, I think it's just, for some couples, it's just a little bit of a litmus test of here's where we are a little bit, and we don't know how to communicate. We don't understand the different pacing. I know for us early on with vacations, and we really loved them when the kids were smaller, especially, that they felt even more important to us then. I think some people would argue that they're always important. They are. But for us, I just felt like with having 3 little kids, we needed it so much. So we'd literally be sitting on the beach and we'd be like, are you okay that we're not like riding jet skis right now? Like, she would ask me because I'm kind of the crazy one. And at that season of our life, I was like, yeah, are you? Because I'm really okay with it. But if you're not, she's like, no, I'm good. And so we finally went, okay, what do we like to do? And we landed on what that was, which was basically nothing. That we sit on, we're the people that set up on the beach, get under one of those little tent things, and then just stay. Just read and stay, because our life is never read and stay and sit, ever. But I think it is one of those things where couples go, wow, we're having a tough time. But I do think vacation, vacation rule that I love is to not talk about your issues necessarily and take a vacation from your issues. In fact, we have had friends, I may have told this on the podcast, they got a vacation, they were going off, just the 2 of them. They came over here and they'd gotten babysitters and the whole bit. And they said, we really don't want to go. And I'm like, why? And they go, well, we keep fighting about, whether we're going to move into a different house or stay in this one. And we're just afraid we're going to fight about it the whole time. And I said to them, I said, why don't you take a vacation from talking about that? And they're very smart, people looked at me and went, can you do that? And I think that speaks to this whole idea of like, we can't have any issues and have a good marriage, right? We can't, until everything's resolved, we can't connect or we can't laugh or we can't be a couple. I'm like, sure you can. So kind of gave them permission to not talk about it. And they kind of laugh now, and this was years ago. They go, we still haven't talked about it. And it's not that you want to stop communicating, but I think for them, like, realize, wait a minute, our marriage and our relationship's more important than even where we live, which I know is a big thing.
Yeah.
But it's just taking a break from those things and start to laughing. And I've even watched, even counselors now are telling couples to date and to get away and don't talk about all this stuff. And I love that counselors are landing in this place of, hey, something happens when you have space to breathe and you're not just running like roommates, that you're having fun. And it's a little bit of a challenge, but I think it's a thing of not having these huge expectations that we're going to have all these important talks. And the ironic part for us is we were very impassioned about that, because Nancy is one in our family. I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk. Do we have to talk? Why are you always making me talk? She says that she's not a marriage guru. She's a marriage guinea pig. Like, you're always trying out new material.
That's pretty good.
But for her, it was, we would always end up talking about important things. And I think it's the whole, Stephen Stasny, How to Have a Better Marriage Without Talking About It. He says connections lead to words don't lead to connection.
Oh, that's good. Say that again.
A connection leads to words don't necessarily lead to connection. And the idea is when we're connected, all of a sudden, now we can talk. And the other thing it does, men don't like to talk when you say to them, look at me straight in the eye. Women say, I feel like you're not, just look at me when you're talking to me, which actually chemically it's setting him up to lose. He starts getting really fidgety from cortisol's going all through his body. And the more fidgety he gets, the more frustrated she gets. But a guy can talk better driving down the road. He can talk better on a bicycle. He can talk better even sitting on the beach, because you're kind of looking forward at the ocean. So there's just some great things that happen there. Even from like a chemical and physiological standpoint, things just happen when we're more relaxed and we're less worried about everyday life, and we're just in a little bit better mood, hopefully. And there's lots of exercise. Typically, there's more sex, which, releases lots of good hormones there, bonding hormones there. So, it connects you in a huge way. One psychologist from Los Angeles, I read this article, he says, the impact that taking a vacation has on one's mental health is profound. Most people have a better life perspective and are more motivated to achieve their goals after vacation, even if it's just a 24-hour timeout. That there's something that just happens. I mean, even us taking a break from the podcast a little bit, truly, I was seriously excited going, I get to see my buddies today, and this is going to be fun. Because we took a breather, right? And I think that's very true.
And Ted, I don't think anybody would disagree with you. We all, even though we sometimes have those moments with our spouse of friction on vacations, at the end of the day, it's great to relax. It definitely, clears the mind. It helps you reconnect. But with the reality of life, great vacations are still difficult to pull off and actually put on the calendar.
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of tensions that, we wrestle with a little bit. For those people who have kids, which
Or dogs.
Or dogs. Yes, kids or dogs. What I've heard from couples, I've been kind of surprised to hear this, but it seems to be a common one, is they feel like they can't go on vacation without the kids. They feel selfish, or they feel like the kids feel like they're left out, or it's mean, or it's that it's going to do something negative to the kid.
Or parents are just worried on their own part of leaving their kids, you know? Like, if I'm not there, then I won't be able to make sure they do X, Y, Z or whatever. And they make it all about themselves.
So
good.
Ted, Afton, have you both have kids? So have you wrestled with that tension going on vacation?
I mean, we try to make sure we do a family vacation and a couples only vacation because we don't want him to feel left out, but also I think we want him to see that it is important to go on vacation just with your spouse too. Yeah. So I think for us, we just make sure it's a balance. But I mean, just the stress of like, we got to pick a week. We got to make sure we've got a babysitter or, that husband's parents can come watch him. And then we got to make sure the dogs go somewhere. Like, it ends up being this whole thing trying to go on vacation, which I know it always is for everybody. You got to figure all the logistics of leaving out.
Right.
But I mean, at the end of the day, we just try to figure it out and go.
Yeah. We do the same thing. So we'll do family vacations, and Nancy and I will take trips too. And it helps kids to grow in their independence. So if somebody's listening and they're feeling kind of guilty about it, it's good for kids, for them. But I think it's also, Nancy would always say, we come back better parents. Now, our kids would be worse kids because they had been with the grandparents and they're totally spoiled. So we knew that was coming in. But we would come back better parents just from getting out of the storm for a little bit. And we would talk about them and how much we loved them and all that. But
and I'm sitting here thinking, I don't have kids, but from my perspective, I would just also say, hey, something Terry and I struggle with is we can't go on, we struggle with going on vacation because we're trying to have kids. And what I mean by that is people, I've shared before, but Terry and I have been trying to get pregnant for about a year and a half. And we haven't taken like a week long, long vacation since we started trying because and it's not good. And it's something we've kind of had to learn the hard way, but we're constantly like, well, we don't want to book that too far out because what if you are pregnant? And we don't want to book something, too far out because it's like, hey, well, what if that's the week that we need to be going into, for a treatment or something like that? We don't want to railroad an opportunity, or a chance to get pregnant. So that's constantly on our horizon.
Gotcha.
And so even from my perspective, you guys are sharing, you can't go on vacation without kids. That's a tension. From my seat, it's like, well, we can't go on vacation because we're trying to have kids. So we feel it from that side of things too. So
Sure.
It's like for anybody, there's always an excuse or a reason to not do it. And what's weird is like we all want to go on vacation. So it's weird that we put up all these like excuses to not go. Like it sounds awesome to go relax for a week, but then we're like, oh, well, I can't because maybe it's just like the culture we live in. We're just like, we feel like we always have to be like progressing and moving forward, and we feel guilty about like taking time out for ourselves.
Like a week.
I know.
A week's going to make that
like a week's
much
going to
of a
like,
difference.
change our career path if we take a break for a week or something.
I know. And, the stats are that Americans do not take all their vacation time. I think it's only 50% of people take all their vacation time. Europeans, they know better, right? They'll take 5-6 weeks. I mean, the stats there is just so different. But I think it's that idea that, because like you said, there is a reason. Sometimes there's excuses, but sometimes they're like legit reasons. Like that's a legit reason. It's, I've got to take care of my aging parent. That's a legit reason. And so I think everybody can come up with something that I can't go for, and people would not only not blame them, that they would agree with them.
Yeah.
Right? But it's one of those things going, wait a minute, it's like anything else that's important. I think because it feels a little frivolous or it feels like it's not important. It is important to breathe. And that can look very different for many people. So for you guys, it may be a vacation, but you can't go too far. But, here's the thing, especially when our kids were little, like we would go to the Mall of Georgia, which is 45 minutes away from here. And we'd stay in like a Hampton Inn. And we were in heaven. This feels like a totally different place than where we live. We've never been to these movies before. And so, but at that season, we didn't have a ton of money and we couldn't be far away. And so I think you got to be smart and adjust.
So speaking of money, so what's the next reason why so many of us put up walls to going on vacation?
Yeah, I think that's another one, is we can't afford a vacation. And I think people listening right now are wanting to come through their earphones and their earbuds and just go, hey, you know what? We can't afford this. And I think it's one of those things where we have to get creative. I know, in our marriage, we've had seasons where finances were not that bad, and we've had seasons where it's really, really tough. And so you have to vacation differently. And, it's afternoons you going, let's go to our parents. And I bet you they're not charging you, a fee to stay there, right?
They're not. In fact, I'm bringing my dogs, and my dogs are tearing up their backyard, and my dad probably has to pay extra to get new grass.
It costs them there, right?
It costs them money to have us. But it is, you do pick, what level of vacation you can go on. So for us, like the once a year, we try to save up for a bigger trip. But then throughout the year, like, for Memorial Day or whatever, we're like, let's just get an Airbnb that's $30, an hour away, and we'll just be there for a night or two. I mean, it feels like now there's so many options for taking cheap vacations that aren't the Motel 8 that you can, even if you go to the Motel 8, that's great. But if you don't want to go that route.
Don't ruin our Motel 8
There's
sponsorship.
a lot of options. Motel 8s are usually right next to Chili's. So.
That's true.
They know we love Chili's. So.
That's so great. Yeah, that's such a great way to put it. And then for us, like we had some gracious people in our lives that had places that, on the beach or whatever. Then of course you can go. One of the things we'd go the most random times. Like we would go to Hilton Head, which is on the beach, like in November. We're there with just the old people, right?
Yeah.
So we're hanging out with them, and our thing
Everyone's
was,
in bed by 8, nice and quiet.
That's great.
It's fantastic. Oh, it would be so great. And we always say a cold day on the beach is better than a normal day at home, right? And so we would go and. We just have to pick. You can. People are creative, but I think the thing is just to wrap your head around. Okay, we've got to get away. We have this much money. What can we do?
Yeah.
Have you ever, what do you think about like staycations? Have you guys ever tried to like do a staycation in your own house?
Oh, we get so excited when we know we're going to have the house, just the two of us. Yeah. We both have a hard time not doing chores around the house and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what my problem would be with the staycation.
Yeah, you're going, and sometimes we'll give each other little breaks to do that, but what it will do is it allows, there to be some space. It allows us to watch what show we want to in the room we want it to watch it. It allows us not to have to lock the door for other assorted activities. It's just to allow yourself to do
Knitting.
that. What's that?
When you're knitting, you
When
don't
you're
have to
knitting.
lock the door when you're knitting.
Marital knitting. I like that. That's what we're going to call it from now on.
Together.
We're going to knit together.
What was that?
Yeah.
That was like
Your hand motions?
well, like if the one spouse could be holding the yarn ball and like unraveling it for the person doing
got
the
it.
needling. That just seems really sweet. That's very nice.
That's great. That's all I'm going to say. That's great.
Needling. Yeah, so there's lots of space to needle.
I love staycations. I almost prefer them. Like when I know we'll have the house to ourselves for a couple days, I get home, I clean the whole house. I do like a sweep of the whole house and try to just like clean it up as much as possible so that I can relax. And then we just like make a plan and we're like, we're going to go to restaurants we've never been to around here. Cause like we don't ever go to like, we always go to Chili's or we go to, we're going to like the places we always go to. It's like, let's go to a restaurant we've never been to. Let's go to the movies. Let's pretend like we're like not here. And it's awesome because then you still have your whole wardrobe there. You got your familiar blankets. You
don't have to pack.
You don't have to pack. And I love that.
That's such a great point, Afton, is, we talk a lot on this podcast about being your best us, like being the best version of who you are as a couple. And every couple's so different.
Yeah.
So that's why I hesitate a lot of times with the podcast to give all these really strict formulas of staycations are good, they're not good, because at the end of the day, it's like the two of you getting together and going, what works for us, and it only has to work for us. No one else has to like it, believe in it. If it feels like it recharges you, do it.
That's awesome. All right, so we've talked about, kids can be a barrier, finances can be a barrier. Is there anything else, Ted, that we need to be keeping in front of us as we think through this idea?
Yeah, there's a couple more. One, we feel like we can't take off time for work. We mentioned, that 51% of U.S. employees have paid vacation that they don't take. And they said 1/3 of their respondents, the people they surveyed, said they can't afford to take the time, just from a work perspective. So I think a lot of things, and all of us feel the pressure of things the kids have, but there's something about work in this country where there's a guilt. And I think this new thing of being connected and we'll talk about that in a little bit, makes it really, really difficult because you used to could get away. I mean, even date nights, like you would leave kids with grandma and go away. Well, they couldn't get you if they wanted to. You know, they're not calling Chili's, right? Chili's probably didn't even have a phone back in the day, right? And so, and I think it's the thing with work. Like back in the day, I used to come home and I would throw my cell phone in the car at night. Okay. I don't do that anymore because it's a different pace. So I think it's one of those things we stay connected, or we feel like, I don't know what, let me ask you guys this, because you guys are both really hard workers. What's the fear of not working hard or taking space? Maybe you guys don't have a fear. Maybe the better question is, what do you think people's fears are when it comes to, why are half Americans leaving like some great vacation time on the table when they're overworked, they're tired? Like, why would we do that?
I'll tell you what it is for me. It's probably different for you.
Go for
or maybe
it.
It's the same. I don't know. I feel like for me,
we are more similar than we are
We're so similar. We're basically the same person. I feel like for me, it has a lot to do with ego, where you're kind of like, if I leave, it will all fall apart because I am so integral to this company that if I'm gone for 5 days, it's not going to be standing when I get back, you know? And it's like, that's not true. That's just 100% not true. Like, if you have a planned vacation, everyone knows about it, you get your stuff done that's waiting on you before you go, like, it's going to be fine to be gone for 5 days. Everyone's going to figure it out. Everyone else is just as competent, if not more so than you are. But for me, I do feel that pressure of like, well, if I take a week, then everyone's going to be waiting on me. I'm going to come back and there's going to be all these issues because I didn't, do something and that's just not true. But I think a lot of it goes back to ego, where you're like, I can't leave because everyone needs me to be there.
Right, that's good.
For me, it's a little bit of that, but it's I don't want to let people down, and I don't want more work when I get back. So I
You
think
just were trying to take what I said and paint yourself in a better light. You're like, mine's not ego, mine's more about helping others.
Well, exactly.
It's like similar to yours, but in a better way.
Instead of like, hey, this organization is going to crumble, it's like, hey, I'm going to let people down with my
Right.
No, but seriously, it's like, and I feel like, I could tell people I'm going on vacation, but you're still going to get 50 emails from people who don't know, and those are the people that I feel like I'm losing, equity, relational equity with, if that makes sense. And then just the whole like compulsion to check your email while you're gone. Like if you didn't check it, you wouldn't even know. But we almost have to.
Yes, Hudson
and
checks
so then
his email like 5 times just in the span of 10 minutes. Refreshes email just to see what else is there.
But then if we could get rid of that, I think that would help. But since we do check, even if we're not working, we're still checking, we can feel the weight of the pile of work getting bigger when we get back. And I think that's the other thing. I'm like, if I just do this for 15 minutes, 20 minutes in the morning, I'm setting myself up better when I get back. But I don't know if that's true.
I think
It's not. It's not. Still, when you get back, you're going to be like, there's all this stuff that I knew I needed to get done and I didn't do it, but now I know I need to do it when I get back. So I'm going to send all these people all this stuff, and it's still there.
Yeah. It's it's living out of fear. It's living out of the fear of what if, and if I don't, and going, do we live out of fear, or do we live out of loving each other and that? Like, that's what it always traces back from me. Like every time there's anxiety, I'm going, what are you afraid of? Like, what's the fear here if we take this week off?
And it's hard too, because I'm sure we all love our jobs, so there's like an element of it where you're like, no, I like what I do. I like that I wake up and do this every day.
Yeah, that's true.
And I like doing it. So why would I leave and put something in jeopardy that I just like waking up and making this happen, like
it's a great point.
There's probably an element of it that's like, well, I also love work.
Yeah, totally.
Do you, Ted, do a good job of putting your work on the shelf when you and Nancy go on vacation?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do a really good job at that, actually. But I think for me, because I'm so incredibly ADHD, like I have to have really strong categories or I'll feel miserable. Like Nancy's, women are, stereotypically are better multitaskers. Like she can jump from category to category. But for me, if I don't know that we're on vacation, if I've not drawn the line in the sand, and I'm thinking, okay, do I need to jump on email? Did I tell somebody I was going to be in town? Did I let somebody know? And so we work really hard. And we're going to talk a little bit in just a minute, like how can we protect our vacations to make them the best? But we've gotten really really good at it. Nancy struggles with it more than me. Like, she's you. She does not like walking back into a mess. And she works in accounting, so all these details keep adding up. And so she's not there. Here we go. So, yeah, I think there's that. I think there's in the last one, I think people feel this whole thing of, we're just too busy right now.
Yeah. It kind of goes along with the work thing.
Yeah. So we just got through with Orange Conference, right? So it was just a really, really busy season for all of us. So most people that I know at Orange, it would be, illogical to say, hey, let's take a week off right before Orange Conference. It just doesn't work like that. And so one of the things that we have found is if you put like a reward at the end of it, let it be in vacation to go, this is going to be a really tough time. But at the end of this, there's this really great reward called a vacation. And so I think that is the thing. Put your vacation kind of at the end of a long thing where you really need rest, where you really are all done, where you're not as productive as you tend to be. Because the tighter we get, the more stress we get, the less productive that we really are at work.
Yeah,
that's great. That's so true. So, Ted, what's the big idea we're getting at here for this week? Because we're talking a whole lot about all these tensions and barriers that prevent us from going on vacation with our spouse. So what's the big idea that we need to take away from this?
I think what we've got to realize is that time away with your spouse isn't extra, it's essential. Like having this time, however you define it, whether it's 24 hours, whether it's time at night, just in a sense of time, it's not an extra thing, it's an essential thing. And I think that's what people get caught up in. It's going, once the kids are out of the house, then we'll take vacations. Once this happens, we'll do this. And it's just not true. We need those deposits of good times together because life's tough and it's difficult. We're running a million miles an hour. And so why wouldn't we gift ourselves and our soul and our heart, to do this? You think about God's pacing on even during the week. He's like, hey, take one day off a week. Well, that feels a little bit crazy, right? That's like, doesn't that make us less productive to take away the whole day? But he's like, there's a rhythm to life that we need to, I think we need to honor and wrap our arms around and not feel guilty about, like not feel like you're doing something wrong when you restore your soul, you restore your relationship.
Yeah.
I feel like too, when I see other people taking a vacation, it's kind of like what you were talking about, CJ, where you're like, I might lose relational, change with people if I'm gone. Yeah. But I feel like when I email someone and I get their out of office response, I'm like, good for them. Like I'm never like, they're the worst. I can't believe I'm like, there's something in me that's like, oh my, I'm so proud of them for like drawing the boundary and taking a vacation. Like I never
and for turning on their autoresponder.
And like I'm just I'm not going to respond. Like I'm proud of them for drawing the line. And it's like, it almost, when I see other people doing a good job of it, it like inspires me to be like, you know what, it is okay that I don't need to feel guilty. Like other people do it and I'm not mad at them for doing it. Why can't people aren't going to be mad at me if I do it, you know?
That's a great point. Because we're excited for each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they work so hard. I'm so glad that they got to get away. That's great.
Awesome. That's awesome. So Ted, as we get closer to wrapping this up, we always like to boil our podcast episodes down to one simple thing. So what does that look like for this episode and this conversation?
Well, I want to break our rules just a smidgen on the one simple thing. Okay. Is I want people to think through their vacation, before their vacation, how do we make it great, during the vacation, and then after. Here's just some quick thoughts there. I would encourage people as much as possible to not work on vacation. To say, I'm going to let people know, do your due diligence to let everybody in your office know that here's what's going to happen. Do like Afton says when she sees that out of office, make sure that's clear. One little tidbit there I learned from Michael Hyatt is say I'm not getting back 2 days later than you really are. And when it does, it allows you 2 days to catch up without anybody. And that has changed my life in terms of vacation. That changed everything.
I'll pause you there and say I was talking to Terry about this episode this morning, and I said, so what is the number one thing that makes our vacations either great or terrible? And it really is. It's whether or not you and I, she's really me, whether or not I end up working or not. Like that is the number one thing that can make or break our vacation. So that's huge.
Totally. And I don't know if we mentioned this, but Travelocity did a study and said that 50% of couples will fight about work, one of them working. It says 61% of Americans say that they work while they're on vacation despite complaints from family members. 1 in 4 report being contacted by a colleague about a work-related matter while taking time off, and 1 in 5 have been contacted by their boss. And I just think that's crazy, guys. I just think I really want to push. I don't get extreme on a lot of stuff, but I want to be a little bit extreme about this whole thing of not working on vacation. Good grief. Sometimes I go, I'm not important enough to be getting contacted this much. And I surely don't make enough money to be contacted this much. So just going, it will be the best for my job if I go on this, and it certainly will be the best for my marriage. And so I think, do those things on the front end before you leave. What are those things that make you feel safe? I mean, after you said earlier, when you do a staycation, I want the whole house clean. That's what's going to settle your soul. Like, what settles your soul before you leave? And if that's work, just do whatever, do your due diligence. But when you go, just go. You deserve it. I don't know if you deserve it, but you should take it. Right?
Yeah, and also if one of you is working, the other one of you might miss going to see the Today Show in the morning when you're in New York. So you should definitely just not work.
Is that a slide at
I'm just
Hudson?
saying, theoretically, if one of you is like, I have to get this work done before we go anywhere, the other spouse might miss going to see their favorite morning talk show and getting to stand outside with a poster.
Did you actually make a poster?
I didn't. You can make posters when you get there. They have props for you. But when I got there, it was over. It was the 9 o'clock hour, and it was over.
So you might miss something because someone's working.
Okay.
We're going to gently go past that. But what is... and
She doesn't mean it, Hudson.
Well, and it's...
I do.
If we're talking about pre-vacation, it is deciding, like you mentioned earlier, what's this vacation going to be like? What's our expectations? Take it at a time where you're not going to need to work. Is there a time that you're less busy? And just know it's all going to be there waiting. Yeah. All the work always gets done. So that's kind of some thoughts before you leave for vacation.
And also, you're probably going to be married longer than you're going to be at that job. So that's possibly more important anyway.
That is,
Good point, CJ.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, think about your last job that you left. Are those people calling? Probably not. You still married to the same person? Hopefully. Right. So I think it's just so ironic that we give all those people all that love and all that work, and then you're like, wait, you didn't even call me. And that's when we leave from good jobs.
We're not even friends anymore. Were we just coworkers?
I was serving some person I haven't talked to in 8 years. So now let's talk about how do you make it great during vacation. Again, we mentioned earlier, take a vacation from your issues. Don't feel like you've got to talk about that stuff. Take a break from that. I would say...
which is a big one for both of you to be on the same page about, too. That whole issue is like, hey, we're not going to talk about X, Y, or Z. Yeah. Let's just enjoy connecting. And,
and if it comes up in a good way, let it be. Or some of you go, no, I don't even want it to come up in a good way. I need a break from that. Because that's the thing with issues. They're always going to be there. If you can't resolve them, then they're, by their very definition, will be there waiting for you when you get back. So take a break from that. And then that leaves you connected. And when we're connected, we can problem solve more together. I'd say be present and be positive. It's the thing of watching couples on vacation and they've spent all this money and they're negative with each other, or they're frustrated because they're not ready for dinner on time. They bring on those normal life habits into their vacations. Like, why aren't we always hurry? Like, to go, let's plan it to dinner that we're going to get there. Let's say we're going to shoot to get there at 5 and we've got, if we don't, who cares? And especially if people are more timely than others, or they want to schedule, like, this is the time you breathe and you leave margin. And I'm all about a good plan for making a vacation work. Like, New York for us was a little bit like, we got to have a plan. Because we are coming here to see the stuff.
To see it all.
To see it all. And if we miss something, that's bad. So I think it's having that and being positive. Just act like you're dating again. Be nicer. Be easier to live with. And if your spouse wants you to be on time for dinner, then for once I'm going to be on time for dinner when we're on vacation. And again, 50% of couples are fighting because they're not unplugging from work. Here's the other thing too, and this is going to be tough. Stay off social media as much as possible. I mean, I know that's such a part of our lives and that's such a part, but when you're walking around with a homing device that people can get you, when you're getting those texts, when you're getting, popping up, this is what's happening on Instagram. Studies are showing now that when we take a picture of something, our goal is to take a lot of pictures, is that we actually remember things less than people that didn't, because we're outsourcing our memories to our phone. So we're not present. So we're not absorbing it. So why outsourcing it and just be there? I mean, we'll do that with the kids. Like our thing is, if we go to an event with our kids, and they're in a play or whatever, I'll take one picture and I'll put it away. And people are like killing themselves, and they're not even watching. You know what? They went from watching this whole play with this big stage in front of them to their tiny phone.
I love that. Take a picture and then put it away. It's like you've got the memory if you need it and if you want it. But other than that, the other 99% of the time, you're present.
Pretend like you're in the 80s for a little bit. Pretend like you're in the 80s to go, all right, because vacations, people couldn't get you, and you would leave a number to the hotel if there was an emergency. And I would say that for work. Choose one person who has the right to call you if there's an emergency and tell them to text you so you don't have to look on your emails to see. I would say any of that, the more you can unplug from that. And it's really difficult. There's actually, every time we look at our phones, every time there's a ding, there's actually a little bit of endorphins that are shot into our brain. So we've become chemically addicted to our phones, and it feels uncomfortable, like we're pulling any other chemical. Right. It's difficult, but good grief. It just... We've got to figure this out, guys, because we're kind of, if I was an alien and I came to Earth and I see everybody walking around these little boxes and they're sitting at restaurants not talking to each other, but they're looking at the box, like, that's twisted, dude. We got to be like, hold on, let's take a break from this. So I would say stay off of technology as much as possible.
But how will we make people jealous that we're on vacation and they're not?
Well, just go. If
You'll find a way, Afton. You will find a way.
Just take 5 pictures at the beginning at the beach when you're dressed up for dinner, boom, and just schedule them to be posted, whatever that takes.
Okay.
I just love the picturing Afton scheduling out her personal social
buffer
media posts.
the week after.
Just don't post any of those of your feet, right?
I saw a meme this week of a kid sitting on the beach, and he had a VR set sitting on the beach, and I was like, I hope that he's doing a VR at the beach while he's sitting on the beach, because that would just be so amazing.
It's true, though. It's where we are, and so kind of go old school and go hardcore on this thing. You just got to communicate to people. Here's where we are. So I think you got to remove the fear from you. But what if somebody needs us?
So that's great.
And finally, let's take a look after vacation. I'd say bring your vacation home with you. Studies are showing it's better to spend money on experiences versus things because it connects us in a way a thing can't. Bring that home, bring that memory home, have a photo on your phone of, that feels so good. That was such a great time. Do something local that you did on vacation that you loved. If you go on vacation and you love biking, then you go, because we tend to not tap into those things around us, tap into some of that. And then go ahead and plan your next vacation. It's so important for couples to have something to look forward to. Go ahead and plan your next time together.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, Ted, you broke the one simple thing rule just a little bit and gave us a list of things, but hopefully those ideas before vacation, during vacation, after vacation, hopefully some of those will resonate with us and we can start applying those now. So that was great. Yeah, this has been a great conversation. And I just love that when it comes to vacationing with your spouse, we can overcome these challenges and they're worth overcoming because, like you said earlier, time with your spouse isn't extra, it's essential. So as we wrap up this episode, we would love to hear from you. We would love to know, hey, what's your number one tip for vacationing with your spouse? What does that look like for you? You can connect with us on our Facebook, Instagram, or our podcast episode page. We're at facebook.com/marriedpeople, instagram.com/married_people, and you can visit our website and our show notes at marriedpeople.org/podcast and leave us your comments there. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Married People Podcast. We hope that today's episode helped you realize that marriage is a little easier than you think. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast through your Apple Podcasts app or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a review. Your review will help us make this podcast better. And for more great resources to make your marriage better, you need to check out Ted's book. He's written a great book. It's called Your Best Us, and you can find it on Amazon or on our website, marriedpeople.org. It's also where you can find other episodes of this podcast. Until next time, I'm CJ.
I'm Afton.
I'm Ted.
And thank you for listening.